Hello grade 1, welcome to today's maths lesson. Today we're going to be talking about length. Let's start off by having a look at our learning intention. So our learning intention today says, how can I use informal units to measure length accurately? Now I've got informal units and length in different colours there because we're going to talk about those words in more detail shortly. Our success criteria says, I know what an informal unit is. I know how to measure an object using an informal unit, and I know how to record my answers. Now, before we get into the lesson, I thought we'd start off with a very short video of a song about length. Enjoy.
A polar bear is what I am, shorter than a giraffe but taller than a man. Polar bear is what I am, longer than a bicycle but shorter than a big old van. I'm 27 popsticks when you lay them end to end, 6 cheeky monkeys standing on each other's heads, 15-man handstands or 14 size 1 shoes. I'm double the length of a red kangaroo. A polar bear is what I am, shorter than a giraffe but taller than a man. A polar bear is what I am, longer than a bicycle but shorter than a big old van. I'm longer than Robert Wadlow and he was really tall. I'm the same length as 16 soccer balls. I'm 3 measure monsters long, that's 3 meters you know. Much shorter than the dinosaurs from long, long ago. A polar bear is what I am, shorter than a giraffe but taller than a man. A polar bear is what I am, longer than a bicycle but shorter than a big old van.
Earlier on, I showed you the learning intention which said, how can I use informal units to measure length accurately? Now, when we're talking about informal units, we're not talking about these things. We're not talking about rulers. We're not talking about tape measures. They're the things we usually measure things with, but today we're not going to be using those things. We want to be using informal units. Now, informal units are things like these. You might be measuring with hand spans, or you might be measuring with paper clips, or dominoes, or pegs. There's lots of different things that you can measure with when you're measuring with informal units. Now, in the learning intention, I said, how can I use informal units to measure length accurately? Now, length is how long something is, but it can get a little bit tricky when something is a rectangle. So with a rectangle, it's got different lengths on it. So I could be measuring it across the top there, or I could be measuring up and down there. So I'm not sure which one I need to measure with. But when we're talking about length, we're talking about the longest side. So here, if I was measuring the length of this TV, I'd need to make sure that I was measuring this one that's got the pink arrows on it and not the orange one there. You always measure the longer side when you're measuring length. So I wanted to figure out the length of my red pencil here using paper clips. I tried to measure it correctly, but I kept getting all different answers. So I want to show you what some of the things I did were. So originally, this is how I measured it. And I come out with 4 paper clips. Can you see something that I've done wrong here? So I was told the thing that I did wrong here was I didn't make sure that the paper clips went from the very beginning of the pencil to the very end of the pencil. It didn't go from tip to tip. So I had another go. This time I got 6 paper clips as the length. Do you see something I've done wrong here? Yeah, I've done it very badly here. You need to make sure that you put the paper clips in a straight line and that they're not overlapping each other. Mine are too zigzaggy here. So I had another go. Do you see something that I've done wrong here? Yeah, I haven't done it right here either. Here, I haven't put the paper clips end to end. You need to make sure that there's no gaps between your paper clips or whatever you're using to measure there with. So I had another go. This time I got 4 paper clips again. Can you see something I've done wrong here? This time I've done everything right, but you might notice that my paper clips, they're different sizes. So when you're measuring something, you need to make sure that you've got the same size units for everything there. So I had another go. And this time I think I did it perfect. The paper clips were going from the beginning of the pencil to the end. They were in a straight line and they weren't overlapping. There was no gaps in between, and all the paper clips were the exact same size. So now I need to record my answer. So I'm going to write down here, the pencil is something paper clips long. So I'm going to count them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can write in a number 5 there. The pencil is 5 paper clips long. I also need to make sure that I choose a suitable informal unit to measure with. So if I wanted to measure this sticky note here, I could use, for example, some paper clips to measure it. That'd be good. Or I might use a cotton bud to measure it with. That'd be good. But if I was going to measure something really large like this table here, it's probably not going to be suitable to measure it with paper clips. So if I get my paper clips down, all of a sudden you can see there's so many of them. It's going to be tricky to do it, and there's lots and lots to count. So I want to use something a little bit larger. There's lots of different things you could use, but here for my example, I've used some playing cards to measure the table with. So I want to record my answer here of the length of this table. So I'm going to write down the table is something playing cards long. Now I'm going to count my cards. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 playing cards. So I'm going to write my results here. The table is 8 playing cards long. Now I'm going to measure something for you. So today I've chosen this pink iPad as the item that I want to measure the length of. So when I'm measuring the length of this, I need to make sure that I'm measuring the longest edge of the shape. So this one here is the shortest edge, and this one is the longest edge. So when I'm measuring the length, I'm going to measure along here. Today, the first thing I'm going to measure it with are paper clips. So I'm going to make sure I start at the very, very edge. And I'm going to make sure that my paper clips are touching each other, but they're not overlapping. Make sure that we go to this edge as well. So I've got one edge here, one edge here. So I've now measured the length of the iPad using paper clips. Now I'm going to record my results on this piece of paper. So I've said the iPad is something paper clips long. So I can count them and see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 paper clips. So the iPad is 4 paper clips long. Now I want to measure it one other way. So today I'm going to choose to measure with cotton buds as well. So I'm going to go to the very edge. I'm going to measure here. Now you'll see this one's a little bit different. We have got 1, 2, 3 cotton buds, but you'll see here I've gone over the edge here. So this is a little bit different. I've said that the iPad is something cotton buds long. Now, it's not 2 cotton buds, and it's also not 3, because the third one goes over there. So this one, I'm going to write here that the iPad is 2 and a part. So that means that it's longer than 2, but it's also not a full third one. We're using 1, 2, and a part of this one here. So when I've measured my iPad in 2 different ways, I've got that the iPad is 2 and a part cotton buds long, and the iPad is 4 paper clips long. So I've measured it 2 different ways. All right, grade 1, now it's your turn. So I want you to measure one item. Now the item that I chose was that pink iPad, and I want you to measure your one item 2 different ways. Now it's up to you what you use, but you might want to use something like cotton buds, paper clips, or pegs, something like that. Now, when you have done your measuring, I want you to record your results. So this is how I did it earlier. I measured my iPad in 2 different ways using cotton buds and paper clips, and I recorded the results. I wrote them down. So I want you to do the same and then take a photo of your work and upload it onto Seesaw. Now it's completely optional, but if you would like to extend yourself a little bit more, you can estimate the length of the item before you measure. So that's having a guess of how long the item might be using the paper clips or pegs or whatever it is that you're going to measure with. Alrighty, grade 1. Best of luck with this activity today. Good luck with it. See ya. Bye.